Hi, hello and welcome. Welcome to something different yet again. Just an idea that popped into my head and it seemed to be kind of fun to record, and I also wanted to play some more Diablo 3 because it has been a while already. What I'm gonna be doing today is I'm gonna be recording, I'm gonna be playing until I get a Primal Legendary. Primal Legendaries are, if I'm not mistaken, probably the rarest items in the game, or the rarest type of items in the game. I have only had one this season that I can actually use, and I think I've had like one or two others, and that is an 830 Paragon level, so that's quite a lot of playtime actually. Primal items are distinguishable by their red border, and they are even better than ancient legendary items that have a gold border, which are even better than normal legendary or set items which don't have a border. The special thing about primal items is of course that all stats on it are maximally rolled, so they can't be any better than this. You can see that there's no range on any of the stats, it's just 650 dexterity, 650 vitality. You have to defeat a Greater Rift level 70 if I am not mistaken, so Greater Rift 17, which is Torment 15. As soon as you defeat this for the first time, solo, so not with other party members, primals can drop for you, and you also get one guaranteed primal. We are gonna be running Greater Rifts about level 95, which is quite difficult, quite a high difficulty, but for this overpowered monk build right here, it's gonna be no problem at all. We're playing Inna's Ally Monk, really one of the strongest builds out there this season and previous season. It kills things so quickly that I think my PC might be a bit struggling to keep up sometimes, but yeah, either way, kicking things off. The beautiful part about this is that I have no idea how long it's gonna take, you know? It could take only 10 minutes if we get really lucky, but this video could also just take like multiple recording sessions and be an hour long. We have an item equipped on our ally which is called Nemesis Bracers right here, and it means that when we find these pylons, which are kind of like bonus towers if you will, when we find them we will spawn strong enemies that make us complete our rift faster. A rift in Diablo 3, I'm explaining just a bunch of the basic concepts, but I think that most people that want to watch this video are probably going to be familiar with it. It's kind of like the end game content, and it's a dungeon type thing, you know? So as you can see, when we kill an elite, which are blue or yellow, these purple orbs drop, and those purple orbs, they kind of fill up our bar over here, and once that bar is filled up, the dungeon kind of reaches its climax. I wish I would reach my climax, and then the Rift Guardian spawns, which is like the final boss. As I just said, pylons like this give us more elites, you see. You might think, why would you ever want to spawn more enemies? But the reason is what I just explained, like we want to complete this rift faster, you know, and we want to just start grinding, especially if you're looking for primals, because we might have to be here for a while, you know, so we want to get the maximum amount of value that we can get out of each second. That's why I think I'm mostly done with explaining now, and I'm just gonna shut up and farm. Well, no, I'm not gonna shut up. This video is probably gonna be a bit of a podcasty kind of type thing, and I'm just gonna keep on rambling. Not that different from many of my other videos probably, but still probably a bit different from something like Lego Harry Potter, where the story is laid out for me and I just have to play through the linear progression that is right in front of me. After each Greater Rift, I don't know if I'm gonna keep doing Greater Rifts, I might also do some normal rifts, but after each Greater Rift you get a bunch of items dropped to the floor, and as you saw, a bunch of the items that we just got right here were legendary. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there is a 1 in 400 chance of a Primal Ancient dropping, and when you get a legendary or a set item, I think the chances are 0.23% that one of them is primal. Let's see if we got lucky straight away. We did not, and we don't care about many of the other items around because, well, we're just so over leveled and strong already that it doesn't really matter. Getting a primal drop is of course something extremely rewarding because it is per definition the strongest item you can receive, but the chances of receiving one are, as I just told you, very slim, and to get one then that you can actually use, those chances are even slimmer. I got really lucky on this one. This was the guaranteed drop for me when I completed my tier 70 Greater Rift solo, but most of the time in the entire season I get like 3 or 4 primals, and there's almost never one that I can use. I do know last season I got this sword as a primal legendary, which is used in a lot of builds, but not on the character that I was playing last season, which was a demon hunter. So I actually gave that primal legendary away to a friend of mine who was playing monk. I know for a fact that my buddy Barsafol got his guaranteed primal on completing Torment 70 or Greater Rift difficulty 70. His guaranteed primal was an amulet that had no use at all, so he was a bit unlucky on that front as well. But that's what keeps it interesting, you know? These Primal legendaries are of course purely about RNG, and the entire game of Diablo and Path of Exile and all action RPGs should be about RNG, of course, because I mean that's what makes it so fun. You want to keep farming until you get that one specific item that completes your build, and then you get like the biggest dopamine hit in existence. Second Greater Rift completed, no luck so far. What I like about action RPGs like Diablo and Path of Exile is that everybody can get out of it what they want themselves, you know? For me, the most fun I have is when I am like completely overpowered in the end game and I can do things like this where I just farm high level content to get that one better specific item. That's really what appeals to me in these games. But I know for a fact that some other people like my brother, they just like to slowly but surely level up by themselves and maybe even play the story mode each time. I haven't touched the story mode of this game in a while. You can choose between story mode and adventure mode when you start up a game, and adventure mode is just like exploration and completing dungeons and things like that. So you kind of don't need to play the story all over again each season. Diablo has a seasonal mode. That's what I'm playing right now. Season 25. They keep the game interesting with this seasonal mode by introducing a different mechanic for each season every time. Last season, 24, that was really a fun one. They introduced a new item type called Ethereals, and they were like light blue weapons. I think the last video I made in Diablo, the previous and first one so far in this game, actually featured these ethereal weapons, so you guys might already remember or might know and remember what they were. This season is a bit different. It has gems. The one in here, for example, the Dregs of Lies, and the one in my head as well. And some of those gems have really strong effects, but the main gist, the main theme, the main concept of this season is that each of these gems comes with a big downside as well. Some of them might, for example, increase your cooldown times radically, so you can't use your abilities as often as you're used to, but it then also says that when your abilities are on cooldown, you deal X amount more damage, so that's really worth it if you have big cooldowns like this ability, for example, Epiphany for Monk, kind of the staple ability for Monk, I feel like. Rift 3 complete. No luck so far. The primals do look different from other items even when they are on the floor. They're not that easy to spot, but you can definitely spot them if you look out for them. Alright, let's go into full focus tryhard mode for a second. Really had a lot of fun this season. Monk is the class that I normally always gravitate to. You can always find me playing Monk in Diablo 3. It's because I just find its moveset so enjoyable and the aesthetics. And when you pop Epiphany and you are kind of like transparent like that, that's something just that really is visually appealing to me. And also just the gameplay of Monk really interests me, and it's a very strong class as well, so that's a nice plus. Especially lately with the changes to the in-app build which I'm using, which makes all these waves appear. That makes it just a really strong contender for best build out there, and I think Inna's Monk might just be the best build out there. You also have different options. Right now I'm using the Water Ally, as you can see all those waves, but there's also the option to use Fire Ally. And while Water Ally, which I'm using right now, focuses more on killing everything there is, killing all the ads, all the small monsters in the dungeon, the Fire Ally build, the other variant if you will, is mainly focused on going from elite pack to elite pack and just killing only the really strong monsters that boost your dungeon completion by a lot. The variant that I'm using right now with the waves is more about consistent damage and constant damage and just being a continuous source of damage all around you, AoE damage as well, where the Fire build is more about providing quick bursts all around the map. There we go, that was a really quick one. 4 rifts if I'm not mistaken. No luck so far. We keep going. The big question now is, of course, what are we gonna talk about all this time while we're together, huh? Normally when I play Lego Harry Potter I just talk about the story most of the time, or about what is related to the story. But here, what am I gonna talk about this story? We're just killing monsters left and right. You get to a point in this game where it's just like, it's just a habit, you know? You just jump into some rifts, you completely clear them out without the enemy having any chance at all of defeating you, and you just go again, and you keep on grinding. That's definitely appealing to me, but it's gonna be not appealing to a bunch of other people. Because they rightfully have the argument that it's just killing things to get stronger, to kill things faster to get stronger, to kill things faster to get stronger, and ad infinitum. And that's not a fun experience for some people. A lot of people want that linear experience. They want to experience a story and they want to have an end point inside. That's a big point as well. Diablo doesn't really have an end, if you will. the highest difficulty for you to complete is Greater Rift 150, but once you've completed that, you want to start farming Greater Rift 150 and you want to push the leaderboards. You want to get higher on the leaderboards by completing it in a faster manner, and there's not really an end, you know? And then the season ends, and then you are depressed and you fall into suicidalness, and then you wait for the next season, and then you're happy again because Diablo is back, and that's the only constant thing providing joy in your life. Let the dopamine and serotonin flow. There we are, another Rift Guardian. This is gonna be Rift number 5, I believe. No luck. A lot of YouTubers or content creators, because some of them are Twitch streamers that I follow, have been uploading their best of 2021 videos, and they have been a blast to watch. Always a lot of long videos. I know I watched Ludwig's one, that was about an hour long. I watched Northern Lions one, which was probably also about an hour, but it might have been a bit shorter. I watched Yasuo's one, Mo. His video was 2 hours long. Was that it? I'm not sure if that was it. I feel like I just don't produce enough content to create something like that, and my content doesn't include enough genuinely funny moments. I think that's something that I'm still working on, just having subject matter to talk about that is interesting and really, really funny at the same time. I think that most of the time I lean more to the interesting front and leaving the funny part behind. This is also something that I talked about in my latest LEGO Harry Potter episode, which all of you of course watched, because everybody that watches any one of my videos watches all of them. That discussion, that monologue that I had in that video was about being offensive, because that is the humor that I have in real life, and I normally kind of put a filter on myself when I'm creating YouTube videos, and it was something that I was gonna be striving to not do anymore, because I of course want to be myself for you guys. In a lot of ways I definitely am myself. One of the biggest ways is just playing what I want to play, not worrying about numbers, and also editing how I want to edit, not worrying about, for example, clickbait or things like that. But then the commentary as well, which I always say is such an important part of my channel, such a vital element of all things coming together that make my channel so great, or in my opinion so great. And then if I can completely be myself on that front, then who am I even kidding? But another big part of me is of course being a scholar, being a university student, and being almost a full-fledged psychologist. So that's something that I also talk about quite a lot, and that's fun as well, but I need to combine the two in some way. A red item, so that could have gotten our hopes up for a second, but the seasonal things, the gems that I talked about in your weapons and helmet, they are also red, so you can get misled by that quite often. I presume that everybody watching this knows what Diablo is and they know what's going on, because I think that if you don't know what Diablo is and you're watching this, that you are just utterly confused throughout the entire duration of this video probably. Maybe you just have it on in the background and you're just listening to my voice, which would be a great honor, because that's something that I do with a lot of content creators. Something else I've noticed while rewatching the things that I upload for a second to see if they are fine, if everything went through correctly and the editing was done properly, is that I talk really fast. It's something that I don't notice myself. Well, I don't always notice myself, but even when I think that I'm talking calm and collectedly, if I rewatch my video on 2x speed, which is what I watch most YouTube videos at, I realize that I can't do that with my own videos because it's just too fast to kind of make something coherent out of. But I think that's kind of being myself as well, because I notice that I talk quickly in my day-to-day life too. Most of the time that is also just because my mind is raging at such a huge pace that my voice just can't keep up. My speech systems in my brain just are lagging behind on the other parts, the prefrontal cortex, that is just raging with thoughts and associations. And my temporal lobe is definitely being activated a lot as well, because when I lay those associations, I activate all of the neural networks in my head that are connected in memories, all the memory systems. That is also a big factor in why editing most of my videos, and especially the educational ones, takes so long. When I don't write a script, I just try to say whatever comes to mind, and normally that's pretty interesting and that is pretty focused on what we are talking about, so it's fine. But most of the time also I have to redo a lot of my sentences. That's something that you don't really see when you're just watching the video, but I most of the time have to, like, I say something and I mess up my sentence because I'm just thinking so fast, but my speech can't keep up, my mouth can't keep up. And then I mess it up, and then I just pause for 2 seconds and I say the sentence again. That is possibly also why my videos might seem a bit unnecessarily edited sometimes, a bit too many jumps in time. But now you know that most of the time when that happens, that is just me butchering my sentences. What are we now, like 7 rifts deep? Oh boy, what have I gotten myself into, you know? Still though, it was an original idea, I think. there's a lot of these YouTube videos out there, these types of videos where it's like, if I get this, the video ends. And I think that's definitely what I'm striving for to do here as well. Like, as soon as I see that I have a primal, I would like the video to just abruptly stop, you know, because I think that's a great concept of kind of content. Now for you, it's a bit less exciting maybe, because you can see the video length. So that's kind of a sad feature for some of these types of content. Because if you see that, oh, the video is only 30 more seconds, you know that at the end of this rift, 30 seconds might be a bit over the top, but if the video is only 1 minute longer, you might think that, oh, at the end of this rift, he gets a primal. That's a bit boring. So don't look at the video length. I oblige you to not look at the length. I forbid you to look at the video length. Almost finished another book. Set a lot of goals for myself in this 2 weeks of vacation that I just had. I didn't finish a lot of them. I did, well, one of the main goals was going for a lot of runs. And I didn't go for a lot of runs, but at least I still went for a run. Just yesterday I did one, 4.5 kilometers. Not as far as I normally do, but considering that I just took a 2-week break right in front of that, or right before that rather, it was not that bad. Another goal for me was to read a lot, and I would be lying if I said that I read a lot, but I mean, in that case as well, at least I did read some pages, you know. I read some chapters of my book that I'm reading, In Therapy by Yalom, great client-centered therapist. Probably a video coming out on that book, I would presume. Did I see something red, or I thought? No, right? I probably just mistakenly saw that. But yeah, great book. Almost finished. I'm in like the epilogue, if you will, the word that the author provides after the book is already actually finished, but they just want to give some extra information. And it was a great read, it was a lot of fun. Did I see something red or not? Maybe it was the consumable right here that I saw. But yeah, I definitely see myself making a video about that book as well. Another should you read it type video. The same one as I made with Alan Watts's Wisdom of Insecurity. Kind of forgot the title for a second there. I think the answer is gonna be convoluted. I don't think there's gonna be a straightforward answer if I do ask myself the question, should you read In Therapy by Yalom and Ginny Elkin, which is the pseudonym his client used. If you didn't watch a previous video where I talked about the book that I was reading, it's by a therapist, and it's about a therapy process, not just one session, but about the entire process between him and the client. And the book just consists of like reports written after every session by him, by the therapist, and also by the client. So it really gives some valuable insights into the processes and also into the differences between client and therapist perception of what happens in the sessions. And that's why I think the answer is convoluted. I think that for somebody who is not into psychology, psychopathology, or psychotherapy, it's not going to be that interesting of a read. Unless you're interested into humans in general, then it might still be the case. But I think that when you are aspiring to be somebody that helps other people on the psychological field, or if you're aspiring to be just a full-fledged therapist or psychiatrist, the book might definitely be interesting for you, because it gives a lot of insight into some specific micro processes that happen in the therapy session, but also into the macro perspective that we should always hold on to when we're giving therapy to patients. What I mean by that, and something that is definitely emphasized a lot in the book, is that you can never think of the patient in front of you as just that patient. You always have to keep in mind that there is an entire system around them, an entire context, and there are a lot of different people surrounding the client. Even if you don't see them in the therapy room, they are definitely having a big impact on client functioning and on the life of the client in general. So you can't just change everything about the individual client and expect nothing in the system to change. Just like you can't expect the system not to react to the client changing if you are successful in your therapeutic efforts, of course. One of the great examples that I was given on this front by one of my lecturers, Dirk Hermans, which is a professor at the KU Leuven, the university I study at, and he is a behavioral therapist, is that he talked about a woman, a mother, who was very depressed, and she didn't really come to anything anymore. The only thing she did was household chores, and well, she had a son and a father, or well, their son has a father, but for her it's her partner. So 2 males in her home, which kind of stereotypical, but it was the case in this case, meant that she had to do all those household chores, the cooking and the cleaning, because if she didn't do it, then it just would not get done at all. And it made her very depressed. She did not have a will to live, might be a bit strongly portrayed by me, but she did not have vitality anymore, you know? She didn't feel like she enjoyed life. That's what I'm saying. I want to make clear that it wasn't necessarily a story about suicidalness, about suicidal tendencies, but it was a story about just losing your appetite in life and not enjoying the things you normally enjoy. Maybe she had some trouble sleeping, she had some troubles eating, her sexual advances were left unanswered, or not maybe left unanswered, but they just didn't exist anymore. Her libido, her sexual drive was really low. That's what I'm trying to get at, which are all typical symptoms in depression. Just not only feeling sad, but not feeling anything anymore. The last symptom about feelings being kind of what should I say? Let me explain. Normally, people feel like this, you know. There's ups and downs in all of our life and in all of our lives, and that's very normal. That's very adaptive. That's useful. If your grandma dies, you want to be in a dip. You want to be sad for a minute, because if you would just continue living a happy life, that wouldn't really be adapted to the situation. People with depressions, their waves in their feelings are a bit disturbed, of course. And I think that a lot of people know that this is a symptom in depression, but they kind of wrongly think about it as only being just a constant dip. Whereas depression can also very much mean that you just don't have that much variation anymore. You have apathy. You don't feel any variations in your feelings. Either way, what I was getting at, because I was talking about the influence of the system your client is in on your therapeutic process, of course. This woman, she had to do all the chores and stuff. She got depressed. She came to a therapist, Professor Hermans. One of the main approaches he used, a very beneficial approach for people with depression, behavioral activation, trying to get her to do the things that she wants in life, in line with her values again, trying to live in the moment a bit more and just do what she enjoys instead of working all the time, for example, or doing household chores all the time, which sounds very easy if I just say it like that, but I have a video on that topic as well. I will link it in the description and you can watch it if you're interested. Either way, they went for that approach together, the therapist and the client. The result was, of course, that that client went to do some sports, for example. She went for some nature walks. She met up with friends. She went to her mother a bit more and tried to rebuild the connection that rekindled the fire between them a bit. She kind of focused on her values again, which is the main goal of that therapy. She put family and friends first instead of just focusing on her household chores and what was expected of her. So the therapy was, of course, being very successful because she felt the need to live again. She enjoyed life again. She kind of got value out of her day-to-day life. Very important to counter depression, which kind of sucks all the value out of your life, if you will. There was, of course, the system she was embedded in, you know, and I think you kind of can maybe guess what I'm getting at a bit, especially by the tone of the story I told, that there were two lazy males, to exemplify it even a bit further, in her house who didn't want to do household chores, and now all of a sudden the mother that normally provided the food on the table every day, made sure all of the clothes were clean and that the house remained cleanly as well. All of a sudden she is just out and about having fun with her friends. Now, I mean, I think you can imagine that there was a lot of resistance from that system, you know, because they were like, wait, where did our mom go? Isn't our mom supposed to kind of take care of us, clean, do the dishes? Why is our mom all of a sudden enjoying her life and not doing what we expect her to do? I'm really kind of putting those two males in her household in a bad light, but I think you know what I'm getting at. They kind of resisted the change that the therapist and the client were striving so hard towards. And that's just what I'm trying to get at, you know? You can't just think that I changed my client and that's the end of it. No, changing your client is gonna have a lot of impact on the people around that client as well. And you are gonna have to bring the opinion and stuff about people that are important to the client into therapy as well. Even if change is not necessarily already working, you need to think about, for example, like, oh, so you think of yourself as unworthy. What might have caused that? And maybe then you realize, especially if you're working from a psychodynamic standpoint, for example, you then might realize, it sounds like your mom was really critical towards you in your early years. That must have not been easy for you. And that is also bringing the system and the context into therapy, you know? Very, very important. And most of the time, maybe not most of the time, but more often than it should be, overlooked. Which is of course understandable, because you're having one-to-one conversations. The critical mother from her childhood is not with her in the therapy, or the partner that doesn't want her to stop doing the dishes and just providing sexual relief to him is not in therapy. You're just talking to the oppressed woman that is trapped in her household and can't leave the house. But that is just my 2 cents about that subject. Another really interesting part of the book is the kind of ending chapters where the therapist, Dr. Yalom, really goes into the kind of therapeutic approaches he was using and the techniques and why he used them. And he has some really wise words to say about therapy in general. For example, that the therapeutic situation where you guys are in, you and the client, is kind of like an arena. It's a practice area, if you will. But the real change, of course, happens outside of your guys' relationship. If your client is being all nice and stuff towards you in the therapy situation, in the therapy sessions, that's nice. That's a big step. That's cool. If she says she is feeling better, if she comes up for her own rights more, if she dares to go into what you're saying and really delve deep into what that does to her, that's all cool. But if she then goes home to her partner and her children that are just like not supportive of her at all, and she just falls back into that hole, then you're not changing anything. Mr. Yalom also has a very nuanced view of his abilities as a caretaker, as a caregiver, and as a therapist. He knows that sometimes you just can't change people, and he is honest in his reports of the sessions when he feels like he is not changing his client at all, when he feels like they are not making any progress. And Ginny, his fictional client, or well, her fictional name, she was a real client, is just stuck in the same old routine and the same old bad habits. And Yalom is just like really honest about what he feels then. He feels that like he failed, and he is doubtful about why are we even doing this? Why am I investing my time in this person when clearly she just doesn't listen? Or she listens, but she doesn't integrate the things that I say into her life. Why does she not do that? And he kind of shows some really understandable frustration. I think you don't have to be a psychologist or a therapist to realize that sometimes when we try to help someone, it seems like we are not getting anywhere because the person just doesn't listen to our advice, or it seems like the person listens to our advice, but he or she does nothing with it. Especially in relations, that is of course very much prevalent. We all have one or maybe multiple friends, female or male, that kind of choose the wrong partner and then finally get out of that relationship, and you are kind of relieved. They are of course very sad at that moment, and you feel for them, you support them, but you are relieved because you think like that person was not good for you. That was a toxic relationship that was destroying you from the inside out. And then you're like, finally, it's over. And then 2 months later, she's dating the exact same person, or a person with very similar characteristics. She or he falls into that same trap, and you're like, did you not listen to me? I tried to warn you. And you realized that that relationship was hurting you. You quit that relationship, and now here you are again doing exactly the same thing. Frustrating. And that specific scenario is something that happens in therapy a lot more often, of course, because the entire conversation there is focused on trying to help the other person out. Not necessarily by providing advice, because that's definitely not the best approach out there, but sometimes you just have to be very decisive towards the other person. Alright, probably like 20 riffs later. No primals to be seen. Some interesting topics we discussed though. I don't know if I'm being completely coherent, but at least I'm talking. At least I'm spitting straight facts. I'm gonna check where the hell my dinner is. This is gonna be the end of this first recording session, but the video just moves on up until I get that primal. I will just start playing it right about now. Alright, here we are again. Ate some nice dinner. Potatoes. Yes, of course I know the English word cauliflower. Cauliflower and some chicken. Cauliflower beautifully prepared in a white creamy sauce, or just a white cream sauce, literally. The chicken just basically roasted in a non-stick pan. Some chicken spices on there, but nothing too crazy. And then the potatoes, just regular rolled potatoes boiled in water. But sometimes it doesn't have to be more than that, you know? You don't have to eat a 5-star Michelin liquid nitrogen infused donkey balls pureed dish every single day, topped with caviar, fed by spoon by Miss Universe 2022 right into your mouth, which is the extra experience. You have to pay extra for that one. Sometimes just a nice little sausage and some potatoes can go a long way. Kinda lying though, because potatoes, I don't really love them. I do know that you can mash them, boil them, stick them in a stew, that's for sure, but I'm more of a pasta guy. Pasta or rice or other types of grains, or things like bread, pita bread, wraps, corn wraps or flour wraps. Man, you can hit me up with that any day of the week, but potatoes, not so much my deal. I think I've just eaten them too much throughout my life. It's quite a typical part of cuisine here in Belgium. A potato is of course a very versatile vegetable. At least I think it's a vegetable. It's something vegetably, rooty kind of deal, something like that. And you can do all kinds of different things with potatoes. The preparation that is most well known over here is without a doubt fries. Some of you, when I said the word Belgium, if you're not from Belgium yourself, you might have thought like, hey, they are well known for their chocolate, their fries, and their bad politics. I believe we have like the record for the country that has been without a government for the longest, if I'm not mistaken, so that's something to be proud of. But I am not knowledgeable enough about politics to make some valid points about that theme, because it just does not interest me in the slightest, sadly enough. Only thing that I do is just vote, because we are obliged to do so. It's not a choice for us, it's our duty. And I just make sure that I don't vote on any racist parties, which we do have in Belgium. The name is Vlaams Belang. Vlaams being Flemish, which is the northern Dutch-speaking part of Belgium. And Belang is kind of, how do you say belang in English? Interest. The interest of someone. It's in your interest to not report me to the police if you see me robbing a bank, for example, because otherwise I will hunt down your family. And their name is Flemish interest, very literally translated. And they supposedly have the interest of the people at heart and as a first priority, but that means like being very explicitly against immigrants and things like that. Other religions, like the Islam, is not respected at all by them. They're also homophobic in most of their handlings. So yeah, when I go up to that voting booth, I just make sure that I don't put a small little X next to their name. But most of the time I do vote like party-wide, which is an option we have in Belgium. If you don't necessarily have one specific candidate that really, well, strikes your fancy. You just put a little cross next to the entire party the person belongs to. Party being kind of like the political group. And then you just bring a vote out for that entire party and not for one specific person. I don't know the exact ins and outs of it, but I do know that that is an approach you can take, at least if you're not sure about who exactly to vote on. And it's an approach I use most of the time, because I am almost never sure who to vote on. Which again stems from my disinterest in everything to do with politics. Belgian politics, but also international politics or just in other countries. It just does not interest me in the slightest. I think the main reason for that is that I feel like I just don't have any influence in that front in either way, in any way, shape or form. Sure, I can vote, and I do love that I live in a democracy and that I get the freedom to vote, of course. I'm very thankful and grateful for that. But in the grand scheme of things, politicians are just not such a great breed of people, in my opinion, which is a very stereotypical puberty university student way of going about things, I think. Like, oh, they are just in it for the money, they don't have our best interest at heart. But that's not necessarily what I mean. But I do feel like most of the time when you hear something about politicians in the news, it's almost never something positive, right? All I know is that I love President Obama, man. I really enjoyed him. He seems like such a chill dude. Then again, as I said multiple times before, I can't kind of like make an estimation of whether he was an actual good politician, whether he let justice prevail each time, or if he had his own influence on things, or if he made the right decisions or hasty wrong decisions. I have no idea about all of those things, but I do know that he seems like a genuine stand-up, down-to-earth guy. And I do know that I loved the Game Grumps impression of him, which kind of, for some reason, made me like Obama himself a lot more even. There we are, Rift Guardian. It's only gonna be number 75 of this video probably. But I knew what I was I did know what I was getting myself into when I started this. I wonder if anybody is even still watching. We've probably been going for about half an hour right now. If you are still watching, please comment Goo Goo Gaga in the comments. Thank you very much. Only then will I know who my true fans are, if I see the Goo Goo Gagas appear down below. Nothing at all, man. Nothing at all. You know what? Let's switch it up. Let's destroy my computer by recording this probably, but let's play some regular Rifts. Now, if you thought the previous footage was a bit hectic, if my PC can even remotely handle what I'm about to do, you will probably not see anything anymore at all. The Rift, the build that I was just using was for greater Rifts, and those builds emphasize tankiness and being tough as well. This build right here, however, this is a normal Rift build, and they don't care about being tanky at all. They care about collecting gold and teleporting around and just killing everything in their path, you know? So now the gameplay will become a bit more fleshy even, and we will get loot not only at the end, but just throughout the entire dungeon, which is generally kind of more fun, because you get more small dopamine hits throughout the entire dungeon, you know? But it does make your wrist just fall off after a couple dungeons. And then how the hell am I gonna masturbate? And now, I hear you thinking, just use your other hand, weirdo, what the hell are you talking about? What if I need both hands though, huh? Huh? I don't. I will never understand that. People that say oh yeah, I need to use both hands. That can be practical and it can be fun, I think, right? Like, I mean, a bit of a controversial topic, but children, if you're watching this, click away or keep your ears closed or peeled if you're interested in these kinds of things. But using both hands, man, what kind of a psychopath with a wrong upbringing do you have to be? You're probably one of those persons that eats mayonnaise straight from a jar, huh? You filthy two-hander. The zwiehander. I feel like the general public opinion would be that calling people that masturbate using two hands zwiehanders would be quite beneficial. I think that everybody would agree that that is a good way to call them. The zwiehander. Oh, why were you late to your appointment, man? I thought we were gonna meet up at 4 and it's 5:30. Yeah, it's some business to take care of, you know, just some fun male business, you know what I'm talking about? Just had to crank one out real quick, you know, with the boys. Oh, you had to crank one out, you were masturbating, that's really cool. And do you use like one hand or two hands? And then he just looks you dead in the eye and he's like, I'm a zwiehander. That would surely instill some terror in my soul. And I would immediately know who the alpha sigma male grindset getting that bread over here is in our friendship. I do think it's more normal if females use two hands while doing the deed, flicking the bean, stroking the gates to heaven, opening the floodgates, practicing some self-care, making it rain, picking Squirtle as their starter Pokemon, replacing the need for a male to exist, pleasuring the private parts. That's a bit of a delicate one, sophisticated, that's clean. At least I hope it's clean, because otherwise you will get yeast infections. They do give off kind of that nice rubbing texture, you know, where normally you would need to buy like those condoms with ribbles for that. If there are any single girls watching this, primary advice for me to get a relation: get yourself a yeast infection. Guys love that. I feel like talking about masturbation is definitely something that is not so normal in the public eye, in the public opinion. I surely suppose that a lot of people have already long clicked off of this video even because I was talking about all that nonsense, but I think it's an important subject. It's an important subject to talk seriously about, and especially with your young children, you know. You shouldn't just avoid it because it is taboo or something, because it's not. It's a part of life. Alright, well, if the lag in the recording was bad so far, prepare for it being like a bunch of times worse by now, because we have opened a vault, which is kind of a unique dungeon as well, yeah, I guess, that you can open if you receive a puzzle ring, which is a special kind of legendary ring, and it just drops a whole lot of shit. So I thought it might be fun to do, because we might get our primal that we're looking for. That's right, that's what this video is about, getting a primal ancient. Did you forget about it? How could you? We have been talking about nothing else the entire time. Definitely gonna be playing some League of Legends later today as well. The new season started. Well, they call it season 22 because it's 2022, but I don't think it's actually the 22nd season, right? No, it can be. Been having a lot of fun in that game lately again. Most of the time, at least. Adopted the top lane role for myself instead of my usual marksman, bot lane AD carry position, even though I've been switching it up a couple of times lately. I feel like we're a special breed, a breed that's dying out, you know, the people that can have fun in League of Legends. The community is still toxic as a cesspool full of waste and puke, but I mean, if you look past that, it's a nice field of beautifully smelling flowers, a bit of lavender in there. Some orchids. Don't think orchids produce any distinct smells, but still, you get what I'm saying. And I like to sprawl around in it. I like to hippity hoppity. Whereas I think a lot of people can't cross the toxic cesspool. And, well, I mean, good for them to decide to stop playing them. But I feel like a lot of people can't cross the toxic cesspool, and yet they remain in the community and they keep playing, and they just sink into the toxic cesspool and become a large part of it. Sadly enough, I think that is often the case. People kind of develop an addiction to pain, it seems like. I wonder if I'm gonna be able to finish this video before tomorrow evening when I have to head back to Leuven because the vacation is over. because it's gonna need quite a lot of editing. Mostly just cutting parts out though, which normally doesn't take too long because you can use some keyboard shortcuts for that. And Davinci Resolve is a very, very clean editing program, free to use as well. So if you're ever trying to get into this type of content creation, I can definitely advise you to use Davinci Resolve as well. I was just thinking about my first series on this channel earlier today because I was for 1 second just like, I wonder what I am gonna play next, what I was looking for in a game, and I thought I wanna kind of play an RTS, and I thought about I kind of want to play Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 2, you know? And if I do play that game, I will definitely record it as another series for my channel. I think it will be great in the future to look back on both series, on Battle for Middle-earth 2 and 1, and see the differences and how I have grown as a content creator, especially now that I'm in the middle of my being extremely offensive phase. You have definitely noticed probably that when I do have these offensive kind of moments that I go completely over the top and way too far. And elaborate on it way too far as well, but that is just getting the kinks out, you know? It's kind of warming my brain up for the possibility of doing that throughout later videos, and right now I'm just doing it in an extreme manner so that nothing is off limits when I try to tone it down a bit again later and make it just enjoyable amounts of offensiveness and not just being like a piece of shit. Because there definitely is a border, you know? There is definitely a border where something just becomes too offensive to be funny. And I think that most of the time I have a very hard part of defining that border in my day-to-day life. And most of the people that know me very well, they know that I have this problem. So they just realize that everything that I say is probably just total bullcrap and that I don't mean most of the things that I say. But sometimes it can get me into some trouble if I talk to the wrong audience and say the wrong things. It doesn't happen all that often, you know, because in a professional situation, for example, like in my internship, I definitely think about what I say before I start spewing out facts. I think the fact that I decided to do it on YouTube now is a bit dangerous because right now I'm talking to a computer screen, of course, so there is no other person to see facial expressions of for me. So I can't really like tailor my humor to the person that is listening. I can see if you guys are like sitting there in disgust, which I presume you might do sometimes when I'm talking about child molestation or something like that, for example. We're switching back to Greater Rifts, by the way, before my PC and wrist explode. And it is also common knowledge that in the end, although it seems like you get more items in the normal rifts, you get more items in the Greater Rifts. And then you might ask, why would you ever do normal rifts? And that is because they drop gold, whereas Greater Rifts do not drop gold. And also, you need to defeat normal rifts, the normal dungeons, to even attempt Greater Rifts, because you need something called a keystone. And you get keystones from defeating normal rifts. Now, when you've played quite a while, you get enough. Oh, it's over here, right? You get 69. That's very nice timing. So I have quite a lot of keystones remaining, so I can do 69 of these Greater Rifts. Now, if we haven't gotten a primal in 69 of these bad boys, whew, I might deinstall Diablo, move to Canada, change my name to Jerry, and start that carrot farm that I'm always talking about, you know? Jeffrey was a name I normally used, right? Or was my own name Jerry and my son's name Jeffrey? I don't know. It has been kind of a recurring bit to use names like Jerry and Jeffrey, definitely, and something about the carrot farm as well, which is also from Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth times, which is like 2 or 3 years ago already. I'm like a completely different person compared to them. Like, I'm so mature now, and I'm just like really knowledgeable about everything in life. I feel like if that was the case, I would not be making jokes about living on a carrot farm in Alaska or Canada or whatever I said. Apart from playing some League, I'm also definitely gonna have another small cup of coffee later today. Really the drink of the gods, you know? Couldn't live without it. Yeah, I probably could live without it, but I don't think it's an addiction, because I do think that I could give it up easily, which are the famous last words given by an addict before he develops Korsakoff syndrome and forgets who he is, runs under a bus and dies. But still, I feel like if I wanted to quit coffee, if for example research came out just tomorrow that coffee is really, really unhealthy for you, but like actually bad, I would just quit drinking it without a doubt and start drinking tea some more. I drink coffee and tea, but definitely more coffee, because it's just the productivity drink. It's the Western drink. It's a university drink. It's a Caucasian drink, I do believe, which might be very, extremely insensitive of me. But again, take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I am someone without knowledge of how the world works. Maybe I just have that image of a white girl in autumn ordering 2 pumpkin spice lattes for her and her friend Cindy. I just have that image printed in my head a bit too vividly to realize that other ethnicities and races definitely also enjoy a nice cup of joe. It feels great to record something as long as this again, you know, because I can feel my brain cells just deteriorating and begging me to stop talking. But no, for real, I realize that I can still do this. That's something I always say when I record long videos, but I realize that this is still an option for me. Just completely spewing out random facts, just like my favorite YouTuber Northernlion does, even though he makes it a lot more interesting, of course, but that is a deep well of self-hate and jealousy that I don't want to open in this video. He just has some talents, you know? He's really talented. He probably wouldn't say it himself, or I presume he wouldn't like recognize it himself as being a talent. It's just his job and he just talks about what comes to mind. But man, that guy's brain I think is so closely intertwined. Every single fiber of that brain is like a nicely knitted sweater that keeps everything warm in the winter. I think if you say one word to my man Ryan Letourneau, I'm using his name and last name because he is my best friend in real life actually. I think if you just say one word to him, so many networks get activated that when you say carrot farm, he is already thinking about the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in Texas. Texas? Dallas? Is Dallas in Texas? Or is it in Memphis, Tennessee? When it comes to American geography, I have no knowledge of American geography. I can't even pronounce the word correctly. My brain is really falling off. It's about to explode, I think. So Blizzard, if you needed any more sign to provide me with a primal, that would be it. My health is deteriorating. My mental stability is getting really low. I want to play some other games this evening. Just give me that primal. You know, it's not that much to ask. Just one little primal, you know, that's all I need. Me and my buddies have been having an absolute blast lately, pun intended, with the game Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. It's a bit of an older game already, not like 2005 old, not like your mom old, but kind of like it's existed for a while. And it had its popular phase already, but now lately it was on sale on Steam, and my friend Krogrin decided to cop it on the down low real quick, and we've just been having, yeah, a lot of fun with that game. If you're not familiar with the concept, quick summary is that one person is defusing a bomb. That's why I said that the blast thing was a pun, and why the name is Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. That one person is defusing a bomb and he can see that on his computer screen. Now, the caveat, the catch rather, is that only that person can see the bomb on the computer screen, you know? The other people have to look away from the screen. They have to look at the manual for the bomb. They can do that online, on like just an internet browser, or they can actually print out the manual and look at it in real life, which is also a cool mechanic. Yeah, we've just been going back and forth, one person defusing the bombs, the other person giving instructions, and it's a great way of practicing communication and clear articulation as well. We have been doing so in Dutch, but that's why I didn't record any of it, because I think that otherwise it would have made for a great video. Me and my buddy Krogrin especially, we have kind of been really getting into it sometimes, and we have adapted our own little systems for solving some of the modules. We have developed our own names for some of the symbols that you need to use, because we have played it quite often. Sometimes you have, for example, a module where there are 6 cables and they are horizontally, one on top of the other, so 6 cables, and they have different colors, and you need to decide which one of those you need to snap, you need to cut. And then the instructions can be, for example, something like, just an example, these are probably not the exact instructions, but if there are no yellow cables and there is exactly one red cable, snap the 3rd wire. If the last cable is a black cable, look at the last number of the serial number on the side of the bomb. If that is even, snap the cable. Things like that, you know? And after you've been playing for a while, you kinda know which module, which task needs which information. So if I say, oh, there's a large button on the bomb, the person reading the manual will immediately know, like, alright, I need to know if there is a vowel in the serial number of the bomb or not. But even before they have asked that, I can already look for it myself, because by playing it for a while, you can start to realize what information you need to give. And if you want really fast times, you need to be selective in the information you give as well, because most of the time there is a lot of unnecessary details that are included on all of the modules. You can really notice that well when you're playing with someone new who hasn't played before. We did yesterday with our buddy Barsafol, and in that module with 6 cables, for example, he starts telling us like, alright, so there is 6 possibilities for a cable to be attached to on the left, 6 on the right, and then the first one is attached, the second one, but the fourth and fifth one also. And after a while also he started realizing, wait, they don't need all of this information, they just need the colors of the cables. And it's just, I think the main appeal of course for me is the learning process that is accompanying that game, because I do love learning things, as you guys all probably know. And yeah, it's just such a unique concept, and we've been having so much fun with it lately. I definitely think that being the person reading the manual is my favorite role, because clear communication is so vital. It's really essential to completing that game, and it's something that I have been an advocate for a long time, you know, being clear in your communication, not saying more than what is needed, but also saying everything that is necessary. It's something that I have been talking about ad nauseum on this channel, and it's something that I feel like is underappreciated in the general public opinion, because people most of the time just start talking before they think about what they want to say. They can waste a lot of time. It's something that I do as well. I'm not a perfect human being. I'm not a linguistical god that never makes any mistakes or that only uses the minimal amount of words needed to get his point across. But I do pay a lot of attention to it most of the time. The downside is for sure, and I believe that this is very irritating for some people around me and some people that are very dear to me, so I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry, but if they say something to me that is not informative at all, or if they send me clickbait messages, that's a pet peeve. If someone sends me a clickbait message. If my girlfriend hears this, yes, that's you. They send you things like, you won't believe what I just saw, or they just sent me like my first name. They just sent Vincent, and that's it. And just sending a message with the intention of having the other person to respond, I think that's foul. That's devilish. That's a creation by Satan himself, and you should be sentenced to death. You should be put under the guillotine while being also crucified and having rocks thrown at you. And there should also be someone next to your head with a chalkboard and their nails going like, if you saw something cool, tell me what the hell you saw. You know? Just tell me what you saw. Don't tell me that you saw something cool. Or tell me that you saw something cool and then immediately in the same message bring me up to speed on what you saw. Don't. Alright, calm down. It's all good. And I'm definitely making a way bigger deal out of it than it actually is. But that is for comedic effect, of course. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't been talking about the game in the past half an hour, and that is because I am just completely flabbergasted that we are still going. Which is also not true, because I realized that this was gonna take a hell of a long time. I just am wondering whether I did not bite off a bit more than I can chew. Chew? Because if I want to put this video out anytime soon, I'm gonna have to let it render overnight, definitely. This is not something that I can let render throughout the day, because then I will not be able to, then I won't be able to use my computer for like 3 hours probably. But I mean, I made a promise, and I can't stop now unless I actually find that primal. Another fun thing about gaming that has been happening lately is that my buddy Krogrin and I have been getting back into Street Fighter 4, which is the fighting game that we put a whole lot of hours in back when I really just started getting into gaming in a more hardcore fashion. It's definitely the best fighting game out there. Smash is up there as well. Smash Ultimate for the Switch, really fun game, but nothing has the same place in my heart as Ultra Street Fighter 4, of course. And it's just something that we come back to every now and again, for no particular reason. There's nothing that actually triggers it. It's just like, hey, you want to play some Street Fighter? Yeah, sure. There's a Street Fighter 5, there's a new version of the game, but it's probably a great game, don't get me wrong. I feel like a lot of people can enjoy it. I feel like a lot of people come home from a long day of working at the carrot farm, and they crack open a cold one with or without the boys, and then they just boot up Street Fighter 5. They play probably like, let's see, Street Fighter 5 character, they probably just play Ryu because they're boring. They spam fireballs and low hard kicks or sweeps, and they just call it a night after winning 2 games and losing 15 of them. But to me, it's not that appealing of a game. Combos are less satisfying, the graphics are less fitting to a fighting game, if you ask me. It could also be that I'm just so used to playing Street Fighter 4 that Street Fighter 5 doesn't appeal to me because of that. But yeah, the characters feel more clunky, and the main grievance I have with the game oh, beautiful word. I'm so glad I found that word to describe what I'm talking about. The main grievance, the time it takes to get into a match. If you want to play Street Fighter 4 with your buddy, you can count to 5 and you have already done 10 rounds. If you want to play Street Fighter 5 with your buddy, you probably have to have kids first, send them to college, watch them graduate, get a new car, let them drive to the store to buy you some milk. They never come back because you have been sitting behind your computer for 25 years waiting for the goddamn game to load, and then you're all alone. And maybe then, right on your deathbed, when you are actually pulling out your death breath out of the lower parts of your body, you are finally loaded into the game, and then you come up against a Ryu who just spams fireballs and low hard kicks or sweeps as they call them, and he just got off work and he cracked open a cold one with or without the boys and he's just playing really boringly. The main point that I'm trying to make is it just takes so goddamn long to get into a game on Street Fighter 5, and that just diminishes the fun out of it completely for me. If the setup process is longer than the actual play process itself, you're doing something wrong. I'm sure there's good reasons for why it is like that. Probably they just have they need more time to load every asset in and stuff because it's of higher detail and stuff like that, but still, it's just not fun. What am I doing with my life? In between the time of me stopping the recording the previous time and me eating dinner, I watched a Joshua Weissman video. He is another YouTuber, a cook. He creates cooking content and he is very skilled. I like his videos. His editing style is funny, even though it might get a bit repetitive and over the top. He always uses this very high-pitched echoing voice, and he describes himself as being Papa. He talks about himself in a third person, and it was funny the first 26 times, but now it's getting a bit yeah, okay, just show me the food. But the main issue that I have with his recipes is that he uses so many ingredients, and that's something that I recognize in a lot of cooking channels on YouTube. They use all these different ingredients and they create their own bread from scratch, and they grow the wheat and they hire fucking children and child labor to create the perfect loaf. Whereas if you look at cooks like Jaques Pepin and his YouTube videos, he's just hey, wanna learn how to cook an egg? And then his recipes require an egg, cream and mushrooms, and that's just it, and salt and pepper. And you're just yeah, I can get behind this. I'm definitely an advocate of having few ingredients and really letting those ingredients speak for themselves, you know? A while ago I made this pasta sauce inspired by pro home cooks, and the main ingredient was just cherry tomatoes, those small little red really sweet tomatoes, and I didn't use that many other vegetables, just those cherry tomatoes and then some onions and stuff like that, but nothing too major otherwise. And it just, yeah, it was really a great dish. Just so many flavors from one little vegetable. Or kind of vegetable, because I used more than one cherry tomato, of course. And yeah, that's just something that I adore in the kitchen, if you can use few ingredients to make something beautiful. I sometimes literally just look up few ingredient recipes when I decide on what I want to cook, especially when I'm making soups. In soups it's the same thing as well. A lot of people, when they make soups, they add 25 different spices, and in the end you have a nice flavor, but does it really taste like pumpkin soup, you know? Or are you just drinking cayenne pepper soup? And I would rather have some pumpkin soup. Having few ingredients helps with that. You just added pumpkin, you added some onions, you might add a carrot or two, and maybe an apple for some sweetness. A little bit of ginger, but not too much ginger, because otherwise you're just gonna taste ginger. And man, some vegetable broth, of course, because you need some fluids. That's what she said. And then you just have the most delicious pumpkin soup right there. Of course, spice it up a little bit. You have to bring some heat to the table. That's not what I'm implying, that you shouldn't add any spices at all. But try to diminish the amount of ingredients you're using, you know? Let that one main ingredient really be the star of the show, the star of your dish. Your dish should taste like its name. It should taste like carrot cake. It should taste like orange juice. If you add anything else than oranges to orange juice, you're a bit of a psychopath either way. But what I'm getting at is also hot chocolate, for example. People that add 3 different types of chocolate. They add raw coffee beans grounded up. They add cinnamon sticks broken up into 50,000 different parts. They add they add cloves. They add vanilla extract. How about you just take a glass of milk and you melt some chocolate in it and you drink that, big boy? Huh? How about that? And if it's not tasty, you can go cry to your mama, but you don't need to deplete the entire stock of all supermarkets in a range of 2 kilometers just to create a cup of hot cocoa. Oh, ancient pants. At least we're getting some upgrades. I'm gonna store these bad boys as well because they seem to be really good. They are definitely better. Ancient pants. A gear upgrade before we find the primal. That's interesting. Let's make sure we don't disenchant it. Are these better? No, they're never gonna be better. Alright, so at least me playing Diablo for about 2 hours already is not gonna be entirely in vain. Somebody help me, please. Alright, what are we rolling for next? Let's go for a head. Let's go for an ancient helmet of our set as well. Alright, hear me out. This is my final rift for today. I'm gonna play some other games if I don't get a primal right here. But I will definitely continue this adventure. I made you guys a promise, and I am not one to lie, as I talked about in my latest LEGO Harry Potter episode. If I make a promise, I am gonna keep myself to that promise, and I am gonna deliver what I promised to you guys. I would be a great politician. Maybe if I didn't deliver on the promise in the end, I would make an even greater politician. Ayo! I feel like one of the pieces of media, yes, we're getting back into the politician discussion after half an hour. One of the main pieces of media that also surely influenced my view on politics and politicians is the Chernobyl series by HBO. Truly one of the best series I've ever watched. Really advise you to watch that if you haven't already. And one of the scenes that will always stay with me from that is one of the main politics persons that is assigned to the Chernobyl site that has to go there with Professor Legasov. I think his name is Boris, but I can't remember his last name for a second. And when the robot they were sent to help clear graphite off the roof explodes, and he figures out it is because the politicians in his country gave the wrong number of run gun of radioactive material being exposed, kind of, is a very rudimentary way of defining that. They gave the wrong number because they didn't want to look bad in front of international politics. They just got sent a robot that was faulty. It didn't work. It broke down after like 2 seconds of working. And that's when I realized that politicians don't always have the entire population's best interest at heart, you know? Very powerful material in there as well. Especially the final part when he says like, and lies. By telling lies, that's how a reactor explodes. That's really cool. Also the part about the exclusion zone where Professor Legasov gets visually like really angry because he's like, oh, so the exclusion zone was decided upon something random. Like somebody just decided this is the exclusion zone and no further. And that made it so that a lot of people possibly died, and he was really angry about that. And understandably so. I am afraid we did not get any primals in this rift either though. And that means that is gonna mark the end of another recording session, Diablo 3. This video is probably gonna be more than an hour long already. If you're still sticking with me up to this point, what are you doing with your life? That's what I ask myself every day. Hope you enjoyed so far, and I hope to see you when I'm back, which is probably gonna be about right now. Ha, didn't expect that, did you? Did you miss me? Did I miss Diablo? I'm not quite sure about that yet. I'll have to complete a couple of rifts to realize whether I'm still hyped for this idea or not. If you are wondering why I'm saying these things like that, it's because, of course, it's a week later right now. Last time I recorded was Saturday, last week, Saturday at the start of January. Right now we're Saturday in the middle of January. Exactly 7 days have passed, probably to the hour almost, because I think that right now it's 8 o'clock in the evening. I think that's probably the moment I stopped recording last Saturday. I've spent a large part of yesterday evening and today editing the footage that I have already gathered for this crazy, stupid idea of me. We had like 2 hours of raw footage, and I edited that down into 1 hour of interesting, in my opinion, footage. Hopefully enjoyable to watch footage. Most of the time lost or disappeared is just me cutting out small intervals where I'm heavily breathing or I'm silent in between 2 sentences. What I am gonna be focusing on today possibly is maybe just speaking a bit slower, having some breaks between my sentences, just so that there is gonna be a bit of a slower pace in the commentary, but it's gonna be maybe more enjoyable because I'm not sitting there kind of like, you know, heavily breathing like a woman going into labor. Childbirth, that's something that a lot of people have very differing opinions on, right? Some people find it the most beautiful thing in the world, but some other people, quite relatably in my opinion, think it is something rather disturbing. I think it has some qualities of both of those opinions, you know? I think the main concept is of course very beautiful. There's new life, there's a new person being born. That concept is of course what keeps our human species around. It keeps us going, so in that way it's very beautiful. Your birth is one of the main elements, one of the main kind of events in your life, if not the most important one in my opinion. So I think that if you look at it that way, you can definitely suspect my opinion being that childbirth is something beautiful, something endearing, but the specific way that it happens at the moment itself, you know, that needs a little bit of work. Evolution needs to do its thing and kind of improve the process, I think, because it's not a pleasure to look at. And I also think that women have to endure like a whole lot of unimaginable pain. We've definitely made large advancements on that field, because I do know for a fact that earlier in history a lot more women died when giving birth than right now in history, that's for sure. But I think we still have a long way to go. And I think everybody will agree with me when I say that improving that process of childbirth and of, well, the human condition in general, just everything related to medical things, of course, improving those things is a great cause to put effort into. A segue from that subject is going into cancer, you know, because I always find it a bit crazy and disheartening that we still don't have a functional cure for cancer. I feel like it has been around for so long, it has had such a big impact on countless people's lives, that's for sure. I think that everybody knows someone that has cancer, is suffering from it right now, or maybe already passed away because of it, and I think that scientists have been looking for a cure, or even a way to deal with it better for the past probably decennia, if not centuries. Maybe there's probably been research into cancer being done for 100 years, I would presume. I'm not sure. Either way, just a lot of effort, a lot of resources being invested into that research domain, I think, a lot of the time, and also a lot of money. Many charity events that are focused on raising awareness and raising funds for cancer research or cancer hospitals happen all the time. So I think that really a lot of the public attention has gone into this subject, and it just makes me so sad that there still have not been any major advancements, in my opinion. I definitely don't want to be pessimistic or disheartening, and I'm sure that an expert in the field will tell me like, oh, but this happened and we discovered this.
You gotta see it to believe it. You gotta see it to believe